Shooting sports with a rangefinder camera, you might wonder, why is that even difficult? It's still a digital camera at the end of the day, just point it and shoot it. It is much harder than that. There's three major things that you have to consider and as to why this is so difficult. One, rangefinders are all manual focus. There is no such thing as autofocus on these cameras. Sometimes it can be difficult using manual focus in static scenes where you have all the time in the world, but you have to factor in, this is shooting sports. You can't just use a regular 35, 50mm lens. The 90mm I have here was barely telephoto enough to be able to use at the best of times. I was very reliant on them coming within 10 to 15 meters of me. The second reason is, this is a rangefinder. You look through this hole here. You are not looking through the lens whatsoever. In some cameras, you can look through the back LCD and use focus peaking to try to get critical focus, but what's the fun in that? I'd rather try to use the rangefinder and make this a real challenge. Rangefinder mechanisms are largely designed for street photography type of purposes, really good for 28 to 50mm. They're usable at 85, 90 and can go up to 135. It's so difficult on this because this rangefinder window is essentially looking at a 28mm field of view and this is a 90mm lens. So if you imagine cropping from a 28mm photo into a 90mm, it's really not that much of the frame, and that's what you're doing when you're looking through here. It's very difficult. It's not all downsides though. Since you're focusing on this small rectangular patch within this 28mm sort of field of view, you can see everything outside of your main composition. So if my shortmate Quadzilla here was going to be walking towards my frame, I'd know exactly when and where he's going to be entering it, so I can be ready to shoot at the exact moment. The third part that makes this so difficult, I touched on it before, this is a 90mm lens. I think the longest you can probably get is a 135. It's not very long for shooting sports, it does make things very difficult. And given that it's a prime, there's no zooming in or out. So even if someone does get within my 10 to 15 meters and they get too close, I'm gonna be cropping out maybe their head or legs and I'm not getting a full body shot. So how did it go? Was it impossible? Did I get good results? Was it much easier than I thought? I went to 3 different local footy matches on 3 different days. The first day was beautiful weather, the second day was beautiful weather, and the third day was also beautiful weather. I was really hoping that the second or third would be a bit more overcast and darker conditions so that I'd really be pushing my ISO or I'd really need to shoot wide open for the necessity. But unfortunately, I was just blessed with good weather the whole time. Overall, it was very difficult to shoot anything more wide open than f5.6. f4 I could get some shots, f2.8 I tried several times. I don't think I got a single usable shot at f2.8. It was all just completely out of focus. It was a nightmare. By the end of day 3, I'd completely settled on being pretty comfortable with shooting at f5.6. For the most part, there was still some issues. I shot at f8 a few times and f8 was largely no problems. It was pretty good to be able to hit focus every single time there. But that was very reliant on having perfect, beautiful, bright, sunny weather, which I had all 3 days. The back screen doesn't tell me what aperture I'm shooting at, so there was a few times where I accidentally got stuck at f2.8 or f4 and I took 20 or 30 shots and they were all, a bit or largely out of focus because the depth of field is so shallow and I'd forgotten to change it to something wider like f5.6. The byproduct of doing this, I shot at f5.6, f8. The shots do look a little bit more old school and vintage in some sort of ways because you're not used to seeing sports where there's so much depth of field. These days, whenever you see a sports photo, everything's always as wide open as possible, f2, f2.8, really shallow depth of field where basically anything in the background is just purely creamed out. Let's dig into the photos to see what I was actually able to get. Jumping right into the photos, out of the first 2 days, you can see that I rated 51 out of the 164 photos. So overall, I'd say that's pretty good. 1 in 3. Now, just because I didn't rate 100 of them, that doesn't mean that all of them were out of focus. It just means that there's a very good chance they were out of focus, or the photo just wasn't quite up to snuff, probably because I'm using only a 90mm and the action was probably just too far away. But as you can see here, this photo was very nicely in focus. Depth of field is looking fairly shallow. They're on the closer to me side of things. There's a decent chance I shot this at f4. It came out pretty good. I was able to get some good action shots. This one, pretty close to perfectly in focus. There was quite a few scenarios where I definitely liked the composition of the photo and what was happening. In this case specifically, like you can tell that it's fairly back focused and this is the action and I just missed it. But oftentimes that is kind of the story of trying to do this, where I end up capturing a good moment, but it was back focused. These earlier photos are quite often when I was experimenting with some of those more wide open apertures. I played around with 2.8, but probably closer to f4 for a lot of these initial ones. This is one of those examples where being stopped down so much made the depth of field so large that it looked quite old-fashioned. Like here you can see that the guys here that are 70, 100 meters behind them here are still largely in focus, probably because I was shooting this at f8, maybe even f11. Thankfully, the day was so nice here that I was able to stop down and still have a high shutter speed and only crank my ISO up to 1000. Again, since I was only using a 90mm, I did have to crop into a lot of photos. Like this is a good example. Decent little crop here, and then really hone in, focus on the action. Not really talking too much about focus here, but I kind of really like this photo. It's not really that great overall, but just the very coincidental framing of someone's head being perfectly between someone's hands doing a handball, that was pretty fun. Here is an example of where I was trying to just shoot at f2.8, two guys just standing here, not really much happening, and even then I still couldn't get perfect critical focus on them. Just so difficult trying to shoot at these longer distances where the focus throw is so small, going from 5 meters to infinity. Sorry, I was going from 8 meters to infinity. Here's another one of those examples where there's a very big depth of field, probably shooting f8 or f11 here. Getting all this action in focus, freezing it because of the nice sunny day, and then still getting these people in the background perfectly in focus as well. Now, it's probably going to be more fun looking at the entire catalog to see about the horrible misses that I made. Off to a strong start here, don't know what happened. Here I would have been trying to shoot this guy, but ended up shooting far closer to infinity, getting this bystander watching the game more in focus than subject here. Here another example, shooting behind the target on accident, so clearly trying to focus on this number 6 here. Got this teammate perfectly in focus instead. And then clearly he was moving, trying to kick the ball. I attempted to track, got nowhere near it. So a lot of these photos I'm skipping through, the focusing might be good, but they're just too far away and I end up having to crop in so far that there wouldn't be much image detail left. So here's a fun moment in time where I tried to shoot this number 39 here at f2.8. Didn't do a very good job. And then right after this, I forgot to change it back to f4, f5.6, f8. So the next bunch of shots are all some decent action here and there, but just woefully out of focus. On day 3, not only did I decide to try to take some action sports photos, I just decided to get into the huddles during the quarter time breaks. Lo and behold, when these guys aren't moving around, sprinting, chasing a ball, getting tackled, and they're just standing still in a huddle, it's really not that hard to get perfect focus. So even by this day, I had just resigned to shoot everything at f5.6, and this series of 5 or 6 photos, even that isn't enough sometimes. So punch in here, number 67, just fumbling the mark there. Very slightly out of focus, and then I end up taking a few shots, just tracking the recovery. All of them still very slightly out of focus. So even when I got confident to the point where I thought I could shoot everything at f5.6 and that gave me enough leeway, still wasn't enough all the time. So what's the outcome? Was it a big mistake and I regret doing it? Absolutely not. I had a really good time doing it. Ended up starting a lot of conversations when I was out in the sidelines with people, just chatting, asking about what I was doing. Not only was it just fun being out and about there shooting, it got me out and about to shoot more often than I would have if I wasn't doing this challenge. I was also able to get a bunch of good photos out of it that I was able to send to some of the guys on the footy team. A lot of them were very complimentary and thankful for taking them and sending them through. You can't forget that this is just local footy. These guys aren't paid to play. There aren't just photographers out there all over the sidelines getting professional flicks and ending up in the newspaper all the time. And while it was very difficult doing the manual focus part of this, I do like to think it made me a little bit better at doing the manual focus rangefinder experience overall. Why not? I had a good bit of fun doing it. I'm not locked into shooting this way forever. In the future, I probably would just bring my nice Sony camera in 85mm and just have fun with autofocus, but you know, it made me think and have to work really hard for it, and it was just pretty rewarding and fun when I was able to get a really good photo that I was happy with.